Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin. Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, 25-year serial tech entrepreneur, 30 ventures under my belt, author and CEO of Sonatify Technology. Today, we are joined by Ryan Ruscett, who has a phenomenal background from software engineering to architect to three-time CTO. He's been president of companies. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Ryan, please.
Excellent.
Give our listeners a 1 to 2 minute background on your story of what you've done in your career and what's led you to this point.
Yeah, I mean, you did a pretty good job, but let's see here. So I started off, I actually natively have a master's in evolutionary biology. So that was the career path that I was going to go down. And there really isn't a lot of work you can do with a job like that, but it got me through college because I enjoyed it. And so then I went to an IBM career fair, and they were giving out questions on what's your perspective of these websites and like how could you improve them. And it was really for a QA role. So they ended up hiring me. So I started off as a QA role within IBM, and then I moved into support after that, and I moved into development after that, and all within security and all of those things within IBM. And then I left that stack because it's very much the IBM stack, right? So I was very immersed in WebSphere, all of their tools, rational automation framework, things like
I have some shared history. I started my career at IBM, and it's a phenomenal place to learn. But yes, you're set on their stack and their tools and how they're doing things.
Yep. And so then I left and just went into the startup world, open source, a lot of that stuff. And I've had a lot of success lucking into opportunities to begin with, taking risks to begin with. And then all of that's gotten me to where I am today. And so the three-time CTO, we can talk more about how I became a CTO, right? How I got that leap from the things that, from a traditional developer or architect into that role, the business aspects of that role, the things that you have to acquire along the path, and how I was able to do it. And then how I was able to maintain doing it continuously for the last 6 years.
Now, before we started recording, we were talking about how there's a lot of people out there with great business ideas, but they're not always the best at executing those ideas. And you were telling me how you've really positioned yourself in your career as that guy that can execute. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. A lot of, so my first CTO role, right, was I found this organization that was looking for a CTO. They were in the red all year, every year for consecutive years. It was owner financed, so he was just kind of losing money all the time. And I think I was probably 34 or 32. And I came into the role, and it was, he was just kind of, he a typical story, right, where he had this great idea. He outsourced all the development work, right? It came over budget, took too long. He got it back, he dropped it in his lap, and he tried to kind of make it happen. And he just really didn't know on a tech side what was needed. He didn't really understand a lot of I don't want to say he understood the business well, but not so much of how to track what it is that you're doing to make a data-driven decision. And so really early on, I came in, and well, it had been going for years like this. And so he took a chance on me, basically, right? Because I was just this kid who's 32. I just got done. I was doing some stuff for Aflac Ventures, building out tools for them, which is we can get into that at some point if we want to. But I came into it, and I really had to, the tech part was really simple for me, right? The right people in the right seats, finding the right, right? Making sure that the person was right seat, wrong person, right seat. And then culture, right? Culture is the biggest part. It's the hardest part to change, especially in an organization that's been going on for so long. And people come to work, they sit there, they work, and then they go home. And they don't really understand the impact that they have, right? They don't look at their job as like this, I come here, break my salary down by hours, and then, everything I do has a dollar amount attached to it. And, if you're doing in sales and you get some kind of salary that's really good, and, your commissions, but you don't really hit targets, but you're still making money and no one's really kind of talking to you about it. Everyone just thinks, oh, I'm busy, I'm doing stuff all the time. And then it becomes the conversation of, oh, well, we don't have enough money to hire more people. So we understand that you just have too much, and we just keep going how we're going. And everyone just kind of accepts it, And so coming into it, I had to really kind of reorganize the entire tech team, right? There's 168 people, huge offshore presence, as you can imagine, and coming in and scaling back the team, right? So we brought the team all the way back down. It really kind of reminds me a lot of like what Elon did with Twitter, right? There were a lot of people, but they just weren't necessary. And when you make those quick decisions in the first 100 days, everybody thinks you're crazy, right? Like, oh, you can't lose that developer, right? Or he knows everything about the system. He can't go, what are we all going to do? And you hear those stories all the time, but in my experience, it's just not true, right? You can get rid of that person and everything will continue to go just fine, right? If you plan accordingly. So I had to go in, redo all the tech, reduce the costs of the tech, right? It was in the cloud. It was over too much money. Reduce expenses, reduce the individuals, find the right people that fit the culture that we were looking to do. Because although the company had been established for a while, it was really like, we're in a startup mode now. We need to be small enough to be able to pivot quick enough. We need to be able to see what it is that we're trying to do, and we need to stay on task, right? Because there's tons and tons of fires every day. And so I used the example earlier, when's the best time to plant a tree, right? Well, 10 years ago, but if not then, now. And you constantly have to ask yourself, where do I want to be in 6 months, right? You have to continue to go to that. Like, execution isn't that hard if you can put your mind out 6 months and say, what do I want in 6 months? And how do I get there? And you're going to fall along the way. That's fine. But you have to keep rallying it back to, okay, I have to go through, let's just use a trivial example. I have, 1,000 backlog tickets, right? And you're saying we clean it up, and everyone's going, well, that's just too much, and we don't know if it's this or that, and we're all, maybe we want to keep these tickets, or maybe these are ideas that we want to put somewhere else. And it's like, look, we're sitting here today, and the reality is that we don't have the people to ever accomplish these. We have massive tickets coming in every day, so just delete them. And everyone stares at you like, what? Wait, delete all these awesome ideas? And it's like, there's no shortage of awesome ideas. If it's really that cool and we can do it later, it'll come back. So just delete them. So you take 1,000, and I've done this before. I've taken 1,000 plus tickets, and I've just said, forget it, right?
That's a bold move.
It is. I didn't delete all 1,000, right? But anything older than 2 years, get it out of here. Because I got stuff today that's going to take the next year to finish right now. So whatever that was, I don't care anymore. It just makes it harder to sift through the backlog. It makes it harder for the developers to organize themselves. It makes it harder to plan sprints when you've got this huge, crazy long list. So you just get rid of them. And it's a bold move, and everyone gets afraid. Nothing bad has happened, and it doesn't happen, right? You're not deleting some magical ticket that nobody's seen in a year that still needs to be here. And so when you come to there, you have to clean all that up and clean that house and take those risks. So I came into that situation, had to do all of that stuff, had to get rid of people. And a lot of this was like I was firing like 50 people for like the first time ever in a day, right? And then going through that kind of emotional process of what that looks like and trying to explain to people when you just arrived within 100 days that they're just not fit for the company and they've been there for 3 years and you were just there for 3 months. So I had to go through all of that. But then on the other side of it, the tech was going really well, but there was no way to track anything. So we weren't doing any KPIs, right? There was no cost per acquisition. There was no churn rate. There was no lifetime value of a customer. There was a buy spend media plan for marketing where you buy the leads and then you try to sell to those leads transactionally and or through some sort of SaaS model for MRR. None of this stuff was planted out.
Marketing metrics. Were you helping on that side too, outside of engineering?
Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got like the president roles and the different roles I've had afterwards, is because I was full tech, but I came into this organization and the tech was good now. Like you could look at it on paper and say, okay, well now we're going to make some money. And we did within I think it was the first 8 months, we became our first profitable month. But beyond that though, right? Because there was nobody else doing anything else. And so I was kind of like, okay, so I went to LinkedIn and I just started messaging random people in marketing. And I'm like, could you help me understand this? I emailed email marketing people. And I found a few great people who would reach out back out to me and actually conversate and say, hey, look, you're looking for click-through rates, you're looking for the delivery rates, you're looking for, there are UTMs that you have to have set up on these different things to track, and then they go to a separate page, and then you get this cost per click, and then you have this organic versus paid traffic if you're using something like AdWords, and so I had to learn all of that.
So you came in as a CTO, you restructured the team, you had things on track, and then basically you looked for other areas in the company to help.
Well, yeah, because the goal is revenue, right? We have to increase the revenue, and so in order to do that, we didn't really have. There was marketing in place, but it was kind of set it and forget it, and no one was really looking at it. And so that's when I got introduced into like EOS, the entrepreneur's operating system. And what
Yeah.
this is it allows me to track the KPIs, right? So if I think about some of the KPIs that I track actively, right, for
So
an organization.
let me stop you here, Ryan. Although this is
Mhm.
very interesting, this is Software Leaders Uncensored. Let's switch gears and let's go more on the software and engineering side. What are some of the current projects you're working on?
So right now, a lot of it's AI based, right? AI self-service. So it's not necessarily like models or language models or things like that, but it's using what exists to allow someone to self-service to create things. So one of the things was a campaign, right? So if I want to save the whales and I'm a person who wants to create a campaign, so I can put on my website, right? I can put on my social media and people will click it and take action, right? They'll take action on this campaign. It has a message. It'll send it to legislators. It'll send it to the people that are sponsoring this bill and the people who aren't sponsoring it. And so AI helps us because a lot of this is people don't know what the message should be. So we use AI to say, okay, well, you're creating this campaign. So first you click it, right? You tell it, you kind of type in what you want and it builds it for you. And then everything afterwards is manual. You can change whatever you want individually afterwards, but then the text, so you can tell it the story, or like what we tell our clients is tell it something to you, passionate to you. Like, I want to save the whales because I went on a boat in Alaska one time and I saw the whales and they were the most beautiful thing ever. Throw that in there and it will create not only the website, not only the page, but it'll create all the following materials to drive people who resonate with that message in a very open form. So it's not specific to you, but it takes those qualities and creates this entire path for you to get what we would call advocates that
So
you can
Ryan,
market to.
you're really good at prompt engineering, getting what you want out of the AI models. Is there a particular one you like best?
I mean, ChatGTP is the one that the one that we use the most. Yeah. If we're talking to like Claudia is another one that we try to use, but really with the new models of ChatGTP and the 4.0 turbo that they've got, it works perfectly for us for this specific model. Like, we're not generating necessarily images, right? So if I was going to do that, I would use a different AI. But for language and for writing content, messages, emails, ChatGTP is definitely the
Have
front runner.
you, on any of your engineering teams, have you gotten to the point where you've been able to integrate any of the AI coding tools to help productivity?
We do in GitHub. So we use that to it at this stage, right? All it does is it code reviews your stuff for you. It's not on an approval process or anything, but it'll review it and tell you where you messed up or where you didn't. Now it's not as robust, right? So we have so usually what I'll do is I kind of have a sequence of things, right? So when it comes to, I love Git hooks, that we actually run our own version of Git on the laptops and everyone's required to install these hooks. So you can't commit without tests, right? Like if it's in
Okay.
Ruby, for example, you can't commit your code unless the R specs are done. And then we put gates around it. So you can't just put things up if it doesn't meet a basic criteria. And sometimes that criteria gets expanded quite a bit, but it works really well. And then we've used things like GitHub, which has the built-in AI tools to help rearrange the code or maybe make it look a little bit better. And that's helpful. It really is helpful. But when you're talking about giant services, or if you're not in a microservice platform and you're talking about something that's more monolithic, like in this example, it's a MVC, Ruby on Rails, so it's monolithic. The parts talk to each other from all over the place. And so it's really important to have those test cases. And we've tried to have the AI write test cases unsuccessfully at this stage anyway, due to the complexity of the stuff we're working on. So with just the GitHub reviewing of the code and things like that, beyond that, we haven't done anything else at this stage as far as AI.
So in a perfect world, if you had your choice, what would be our ideal tech stack that you would have your team work from?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of Ruby. So it doesn't have to be Ruby on Rails, but I love the Ruby framework. Love configuration over, what is it? What is that word? What is it? Something over, it's drawing a blank on it. Something over configuration. It's the big Ruby saying, and I'm totally forgetting about it. I think I wrote it down in your thing. Let me see. What is this?
That's all right.
Yeah,
Keep going.
it is configuration over the basic main idea is that when you spin up things in Rails, it already does things for you in a specific way. So you don't have to configure it to work. It already knows. So instead of configuration, you use like this conformity, right? That's not the word, but it's, when you spin up an API or something, it builds you all of the CRUD things, it builds you all of the maps, it builds you the URLs, it builds everything. And it's all done off of what you call it when you start it in the command line. So anybody who uses Ruby knows that. And so for APIs, I love Ruby. So my first stack would be Ruby. As far as I would put it in cattle, which is a container orchestration layer. I would put it inside of there, and I would run it on. I would run it on any base layer container. It doesn't really matter. And then I would have Amazon. Not well. I have parts of it in Amazon. I like Kafka. I like messaging. I would do all of the messaging within Amazon, and then that begs to differ. Probably put the containers in EKS or EK, in the side of Amazon and run it. Ruby is the operating system. Like I remember you asked me this question earlier, and I said like I don't really have a preferred stamp. Like I'm not a LAMP stat guy, and I'm not like a whatever. I really like Ruby. I like it for their API structure. I like it for their MVC structure too for just websites, right? Like something like Airbnb is on Rails. And I also like Vue.js, right? So I used to be a big React guy, and then Redux got me because it was so complicated to manage state on a page. And so then I started going into Vue, which is kind of Vue and Angular. And Vue is my preferred front end model to use, and Ruby is my preferred back end. And then
kind of interesting because for a long time people thought Ruby on Rails would die, and it
remember
it keeps digging around. And anybody I know who their preferred framework is around Ruby on Rails just swears by it that it's the best out there. What's your take?
I agree. And I remember it now. So it's convention over configuration. That's what it is. So when you name an application, it creates all of your models and all of your views and all of your things in accordance with what you called it. And so it's convention over configuration. You don't have to configure all this. Rails does it for you. I remember Rails 5, I think, when everybody said it's done, it's over. And I'm like, well, like eBay's on it. And I was like, well, Airbnb. And now they're at Rails 8. And they just released it actually, like a few months ago was when they did the release of 8. And I love it. It just gets easier and easier and easier. Like there's nothing easier than just typing on the command line. Like I want Rails API, and I want, 10 endpoints called this, and this, and hit it, and then it's done. The CRUDs are done, the files are created, the links are there, the URLs are set up, everything's ready to go. Hit start, go to 3000 on my computer, and there we go. I got the whole site. All I have to do is I have to write the code. It even will do the private methods and things like that for inside of the controllers if you are trying to call anything private within it for the sessions, all of that stuff. It just does it all. All I have to do is then come in, and realistically, I'll just chat GTP, like make me create for this, and this. I can copy that right into it, and I could build the whole thing in 30 minutes with 10 endpoints. And Rails will actually generate the documentation for it when I'm done. So I just done that fast. So you really can't. I like Django, right? I like Python, very similar languages. So I do like Django. It does a lot of the similar things as Rails. But Python for a while, it's dying down now, I believe. But it was like the thing, right? Especially when it came to machine learning.
Yep.
Right? Python came in there. And
let's switch gears here, Ryan. As a CTO here in 2025, what's the biggest challenge you're facing now?
People, workforce, hands down. I mean, you can come up with all the coolest tech you want. It's all there. But even if you have unless it's a consumer product, you can have the coolest tech out there, and like it doesn't necessarily generate revenue, right? Well, my site does this cool stuff. Like, so what? All I'm looking for is this, right? So although technology is going fast and we are having tools that make it easier and all of that, it's people. People are the hardest thing to find, all the way from the beginning to end, right? I'll put an ad out to hire somebody. I'll get 400 people in 48 hours. So, okay, let's look through these 40. Let's start the process. You look through them. It's kids from college. Every single kid from college has and I'm looking for senior level, like top tier. Like it's clearly stated. They think because I'm not trying to put anyone down or anything, but they think because they finished college and did some capstone project that they get that top tier job. They want that 180, 190K job out of college because I guess that's what they probably were taught or told.
New engineers have it pretty tough in the current environment.
Yeah, and so
that first 5 years of experience, it's a hard environment right now.
So that's what makes it just hard, though, because sifting through that to find the right people. Now, granted, you have the AI tools, right? This is another thing I hate, and there's a twofold to this one. I hate the fact that a resume. So I'll say this, and then I'll tell you what I do. A resume is I think is just junk, right? It's like highlight what you did, cool, great, awesome. I don't know if I believe any of it. I don't know if you actually played a role in any of this, or if there was someone above you and you just learned from him so you can speak to it, and you don't even really know. So I don't even really take any interest in the resumes. I look at him like years of experience. He has some places, cool. Schedule a call, right? And I'll just do that for the first few people because within 15 minutes, I'll know. I'll absolutely know within 15 minutes. I'll target you with some questions, not technical. I'm not going to drill you on, Redux, or I'm not going to ask you to do threading in Java, right? I'm just going to just go ahead and talk to you. And within 5 minutes, I'll usually know. I give
So
it
what are you
15.
looking for there, Ryan? What indicators are you looking for in
It's
that?
into it's when I ask you something, I guess I'll call it intuition. I don't know, call it whatever you want. But it's how I do it. And I ask them questions about the things that they've done, but not on the resume. So I'll ask them, hey, right? I have two ways. What have you done lately? Tell me about it. They'll always start high and say, oh, I've got this, I've done these things. And I'm like, stop, tell me about that one thing. And I can tell right now whether or not they were part of the discussion of architecting it and building it, or whether or not they were just in the room. I can tell right away. I want the one who architected it and helped build it, not the one who sat in the room listening to everybody else. And I can tell that right away. And then the other thing I'll do is if I'm talking to them and they're coming off as like some kind of crazy expert, I'll say, okay, so you're a Linux expert. They're like, yeah. I go, rate yourself on 1 to 10. And they're like, I'm an 8. And I'm like, all right, well, let me ask you 8-level questions. And then I ask them questions, and it turns out they're 3, right? If you're an 8 in Linux, then you're going to know what the neighbor tables are. You're going to know IP2 versus not, and know how that works, especially when it comes into container orchestration, if you are actually an 8. But if you're not, then you won't, and they don't. And so those are kind of the things I use to weed out whether it's strictly technical or whether I'm looking for like an architect. And I can
Gotcha.
tell. And I'd rather do that because I can knock it out. I can knock out 20 of them in a few hours, and I typically find the right person in that time, and then I don't have to worry about all this other stuff. And the AI tools I hate because the way that people go about trying to find jobs today, and tell me what you think on this too, by the way, because you go look at for jobs and you will see they want everything under the sun. They're like, I need someone who does all of this, and it's like you're never gonna find it, period. But you want someone who's capable, who can actually do the job you're asking for. So you apply, right? They search through it with AI, and I've seen this on the back end when I work with some of my friends who are recruiters, and it just pushes out resumes. And I was like, and so I was with my friend Anthony, and I said, hey, look, throw my resume in there and put it for these 5 jobs that I would be completely qualified for, and my resume got denied each time. And I'm like, why? And he's like, it's just missing this one thing or that thing. And I was like, I get how it's nice to weed through the 200 resumes, but at the same time, I feel like that's one of the biggest struggles of people trying to find jobs today in tech, is that if your resume doesn't meet whatever criteria, it just gets rejected immediately. So being visible and seen is
The
tough.
game has definitely changed, and if you don't have the network to get to that first interview, you're kind of
Yeah.
to play through those AI games to even get to that point. Ryan,
And
we
what
got to wrap this up. We really appreciate you getting uncensored with us today. That's it for this episode, Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin, CEO, author, and builder of over 30 ventures, all powered by custom software. Stay bold and keep building, everyone. Thank you.